The organisation was challenged by what was going on in the sector, and its role, and being a sort of regulator when there was a complete gap in really what do we need to improve, as opposed to simply regulate.
There was nothing to regulate, was there?
That was the challenge, and you could see the system was slipping away from us financially, and it just needs a different approach. And Jeremy Hunt created that organisation.
Well, in fairness to him, he did.
And he did.
But it is interesting, from the management point of view, how you approach that, because you had Monitor and the TDA. The TDA were really a spare wheel when they got to the point where they were redundant. Nobody else was going to become a foundation trust. What were they there for? You were stymied by the fact there was no political ambition for more legislation. So you had, in fact, you still had effectively two organisations with a wrapper.
There's a wrapper. We have one organisation, one chief exec, one team. It's come together quite well.
And how did you approach that?
It's not just because they're my teams. We've got some really good people.
Yeah, but you had a lot of those good people to start with, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Really good people.
They were good people, and they weren't working.
Comes back to how you put organisations together, how you auctionate them, how you get them working in the direction you want, how you tip it from being a sort of slightly cold regulator to being a warm improvement support organisation. That doesn't mean to say you're soft, warm and cuddly, it just means you do it differently, your interaction.
Tell us about that. It's a big change in philosophy, and there's a real change management story to be told here. How did you approach that?
I've got a really good chief exec, just somebody who's fantastic.
Yes. We all know, we're all big fans of Mark Ricknell, who sat in that chair, and he wanted a job. As it turned out, he's now running the world's healthcare system.
Another fantastic guy.
Yeah. We're all big fans of Mark. He's done a great job. He was in the line. He was in the running, and then because Jim appeared from nowhere, really. Terry and I have been up to Northumberland to see his trust, and I don't know if you've been up there, but it's an unbelievably well-run organisation. You can kind of suss an organisation out in the first 10 minutes, really. But it was stunning how he got the whole place humming. Everybody had a sense of responsibility. They weren't afraid to make a decision. It was a real exemplar of how to run a place. Yeah. And how did he get recruited?
We pursued him.
Yeah. Because
we knew, and it wasn't just me, we knew that what the service needed at this time was somebody who could build trust, who could build clear direction. His photography comes across as pretty stern and challenging, but he really gets it. He's got grit.
He's authentic, isn't he?
Yeah, because he's done it all, and that doesn't mean to say he's going to favour the provider over the system, but it means he understands that he can get stuff done, and he has created quite a lot of followership, which if you're in an ALB role, having followership is pretty vital.
Well, he came into the Healthchat with us, and he just wowed us, for an hour and a half. He was terrific, and quite amusing as well, really. Felt bad about calling him the Jim Reaper, but by then it had stuck. So
he doesn't mind.
He doesn't mind. You wouldn't want to upset him, would you?
He's good, and we're on that journey to support the system.
So you've got a lot of the existing people. You've got the Jim Reaper coming in. You're trying to change the colour, texture, and flavour of the organisation, and then you've got a financial settlement and a 5-year forward view, which is not really very helpful. How do you see the money thing?
What did Jim say? It's pretty brutal, but we've got what we've got. And I want to be very clear on this. The negotiation around the SR was a negotiation. We got what we got. There's no more money in the short term, so we have to step up to quite a lot of stuff that is in our gift. When you look at the system as a whole, apart from the fact there's a complete opacity in the way the money flows, and that needs to be fixed, We've got a system that is fragmented. We've pitted commissioners against providers. We've split the system up into 500 component parts. So it's not actually designed efficiently, and therefore it's not run efficiently. We've also got massive displacement activity. So you know, we've got displacement from community care at the front end to GPs, displacement into the front of hospitals, and then we've got these dams at the back end of hospitals because we can't get people out into community and home care at the other end. So if you look at the provider sector, it's got the push from the front end and the push from the back end, and it's being squeezed. That's why you have to look at this system as a much, much bigger piece. You've got to fix primary care, you've got to fix community care, you've got to fix social care, and then you reconfigure hospitals. You can't just drive everything to the front door of a hospital and then believe that it will operate that way. It doesn't do that. You know, no system does that.
So how do you get around the? I mean, this is the Lansley legacy, isn't it, with the distributed leadership model? How do you get around the interface between NHS England, that is really only supposed to be buying stuff and looking after primary care, and you on the provider side? And you're right. I mean, clearly, this is a whole system. How do you get round the distributed leadership model? I mean, when it first started, you stopped doing it now, but I remember when David Bennett was at Monitor, every letter that came out was signed by 3 people, the TDA, David Bennett. It was like a Christmas card from Auntie Mary, Uncle Bob, and, you know, Felix the cat with a paw print. You know, it's just so childish. Who's in charge?
Well, the who's in charge thing, I think, is the wrong question, because I actually think
it's a difficult question.
Yeah, because actually I think you don't create that type of leadership. You create a systems leadership which is based on collaborative coming together of people at all levels. So, you know, I do know Malcolm well. I think Malcolm's great, and he and I meet every month with Jim, and every 2 weeks with Jim and Simon. 4 LB chairs get together every month. Chief execs increasingly get together. NHSE and NHSI are making joint appointments. We're putting our teams together physically and around the country where we can. We will move increasingly to joining up some of our back and middle office things. So we are starting behaviourally, we're integrating the system. And then over time we will start to put the people back into the system to work together with the different roles that they have. But at the end of the day, if you are very patient-centric, very outcome-driven, then if you've got that mindset, working together across the boundaries of your own organisation should be an instinctive reaction.
Well, it should be. It was much more difficult, though.
Of course it is, but it comes down to what are you trying to do?
Where does social care sit in all that?
Well, that's the great challenge, I think, and you know, as soon as possible, we should integrate social care into the debate. STPs are doing it to a degree. I want
to deal with STPs as a sort of discrete segment, if I may. But certainly the social care, I thought it was very interesting that St David, as David Dalton up in Salford, has 700, I think, isn't it, social service people to work in his trust. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really interesting development.
Well, it comes back to if you look at the system as a whole and the big challenge as a whole, and the report by the Nuffield last week, you know, when you look at the bow wave of demand and what's happening to society, social care is going to be the critical factor for the next 25 years. You know, we can complain about what we've got in the health service, but actually it's the integration of the health and care service that will be
well, I wrote a piece last week where I said if there's any more money, give it to social services, and I thought the roof would come in, but actually a lot of people said, you know what, you're right.
But that's because, Roy, if you look at 2030, what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to have fundamentally redesigned out-of-hospital care. We're going to have to have really thickened out community care. We're going to have to have thickened out social care, and we're going to have to redesign primary care and general practice. By doing so, you're unblocking this sort of the acute hospital is the centre of everything. It shouldn't be. And if you look to 2030, It won't be. The question is, when do you start?
See, I'm not so sure I agree with that. You see, I used to be a big fan of primary care. And I don't say this in any way to be disparaging of primary care, because people work damn hard in primary care and they're doing all they can. But I'm just wondering really if it's just not a model that is had its day, and it's time to give all the money to secondary care, run it all out of secondary care as accountable care organisations, put the GPs in the hospitals, run the out of hours from the hospitals, let them own the community care and let them run social services. I mean, I can't see the point. I've got to be careful how I say this. I mean, I'm saying this slightly tongue-in-cheek, but I can't see the point of primary care anymore. Because you go to primary care, you struggle to get an appointment. This is not because people are lazy or stupid, it's just the demand, right? You struggle to get an appointment, you go and see a doctor, he says you need a test, and then say you've got to go somewhere else for the test, then you've got to wait for a result, you've got to bugger about with the doctor who says, oh, you need to go and see the hospital. Why don't we just cut them out of the loop? Because, if you're not well, where are you going to go? You're going to mess about trying to get an appointment with the GP, or are you going to say, do you know what, I'm going to the hospital, I can park, they're open all hours, I can get in, get diagnosed, get fixed up, get out and get on with my life. You can't do that in primary care.
Yeah, but that's because primary care as designed doesn't meet the needs. I'm saying redesign the model.
Why?
For primary care.
Why don't you just broken?
It's the right, well, it might be broken, it might be hollowed out, it might not have had the investment, there are a number of things, but I don't think you just flow people increasingly to the front door of secondary.
But that's where people want to go, don't they?
Well, that's in the absence of anything else. I think I don't want to go there if there are real alternatives. And the problem that we've got is we haven't really designed those new models. We haven't really designed and thickened out and invested in that side of it. I think it's madness, if I might be so bold, to say the answer for 2030 is to make secondary care what it was in 1978, I don't know, whenever it was.
Well, it's very difficult for GPs. They're often landlocked. They can't get a planning consent. They don't have the money to invest.
Let's fix the problem.
Well, it needs a primary care needs a consolidation.
It needs consolidation. It needs, as you see in other countries, you need increased use of digital technology for the way in which you see a GP, talk to a GP, book appointments with GPs, and then the way in which data flows from primary care through into secondary.
I mean, if you look at decent appointment systems, very few GPs can afford to put the investment in the IT to make that really work with the CRM system, the customer relationship model, which is actually what it wants. CRM system in a GP, it's too expensive. They can't do it.
I think there are some interesting examples of
apart from IMS Maxims, of course.
Startups that can do it and fix the problem, Roy, not let's have another bloody restructure of this health system, which only creates more uncertainty, more sexism. We know what we've got to do.
You talked about new models of care. Why aren't the vanguards? Why I don't think it matters compared to mine. Why are they?
Sorry, just to interrupt. Just STPs, we've got the Canadians in the room who don't know.
Okay, well, come on to that. Yes, of course.
We've explained.
They're not stupid. They're Canadian. There's no way to talk about colonial French, John.
Commonwealth French.
Yeah. John is Welsh. He doesn't understand anything. Look at the healthcare system. Why are the thank you? If you don't understand any of the acronyms, don't worry, because neither do I. And if you ask, it'll be better. When you're talking about new models of care, why aren't the vanguards under the umbrella of Not Monitor? Why is Simon messing about with them?
Well, I think you go back to when they were started. They were started pretty soon after Simon arrived. They were designed essentially around the NHSE umbrella of shape of new model, shape of care. I think it's fair to say the relationships between NHSE and TDA and Monitor were not where they needed to be, so that sort of sharing, collaborative mindset, joint development, joint working was not there. It is now, so I think if we were doing those types of things again, and we come back to STPs, we would do them much more together. We are engaged now in them. I think where we're engaged, it really helps, particularly all the acute vanguards and stuff.
It seems a more natural home.
but
All right, shall we
somebody
talk about STPs then?
We
Right.
can do.
Okay,
You
now
know, explain what they
STP is an additive that you put in your petrol tank. There are some people like Michael who are old enough, who had old bangers, to know that you used to put STP as an additive in the petrol tank to make the engine run cleaner. We're not talking about that. We're talking about sustainability and something or other people. What do they call it?
Sustainable transformation
Program.
Sustainable. Say that again. Could you say that again?
Sustainability and transformation program.
You're not sure.
It doesn't matter, quite frankly. You know.
Okay, what it is,
what-
just so that we can catch up with our Canadian friends. It's a program that where we're taking a bit of some money and putting it in a program where we're trying to make what we've got work and polish it up for the future. I think that's probably, that's sort of about right, isn't it?
I wasn't listening to what you're saying. Let me tell you what I think they are. They started out as a way of getting people to talk, where they had not talked for 2 years because we had
Right. Can I just
fragmented the
interject
system.
there? Because I did the report on healthcare in London, and one of the things that we discovered in London was the absence of a strategic hand across London, and I'm not talking about strategic health authorities, but the absence of a strategic hand was sorely missing. The ability of people to work together only goes so far. You need that sort of ringmaster role, and that's really what the STPs perhaps are about.
They're certainly the start of a conversation about what does the local health economy need, and it's not the same across all 44 for obvious reasons. It's a way of putting people in the room alongside, back to our earlier conversation, local authorities responsible for social care. We haven't got it all right, we probably haven't engaged as many of the mental health trusts in the right way as we should have done. We probably haven't got the local authorities in all of them. We probably haven't got the design of all the geographies, but
It's 44 too many.
it may well be too many. It is certainly too many to get all engaged and up to speed and driving at the same pace.
So can we expect some reconfigurations with them, or will some areas just not have an STP?
I think we'll find things move at different paces. I think there'll be some who are pretty cooked and ready to go. There are some that need more work. Some will, whatever geography you design in some places, you will have to work across those geographic boundaries. So when I go to some and I hear all about we really need to be connected up to so and so. I said, get connected up to so and so. Don't wait. Don't seek permission to go and do something. One of the things I say to chairs all the time is push the boundaries of what you think needs to be done. If it needs to be done, and then we'll try and help you, try and get you there. If you go too far, we'll pull you back. But most of the time, people are going in a direction which is entirely consistent with better outcomes, serving the public better, and getting a more efficient system.
I want to talk to you about boards in a minute, because I think they do have a pivotal role. But coming back to the STPs, seriously for a moment, I mean, they've taken some stick. There was a leak of some undercooked documents, which was, speaking as sort of a journalist, I love the idea of a leak, but sometimes it can be very unhelpful, I think.
Yeah, I'm balanced on this because you can move so far, but then you really have to engage in the consultation, in the public.
Well, let's just talk about, see, some of these STPs are down in your neck of the woods. Some of the, I haven't read them all, obviously, there are 40 odd documents and they haven't all got a document, but the ones I've looked at, they can be very dramatic. They're proposing, circling the wagon, very dramatic changes in some parts of the country. And if they're going to have to go through the standard consultation process, it will take forever, because you know what people are like. You'll get the local people who would object, often for very good reasons. And they'll get the lawyers in, and then they'll get judicial review. And you and I know that if somebody wanted to do something with an STP where we live, we could keep running around for 4 years. and it's going to happen. And what worries me is, you know, as I said the other day, it's not the 5-year forward view anymore, Ed. It's a 900-day forward view. And I could waste 900 days at the lawyers with STPs.
Yeah, but when we miss what we're trying to do here, which is create a system which is more joined up, which is more affordable and more modern, and
Yes.
still delivering delivering
But
better
but
outcomes.
if you, I mean, I've
if
been
it's all
involved
the
with
not
some.
in my backyard or
Well,
over
it
my
is.
dead body. Well, quite
I mean, to
frankly,
say, yeah, but you
Yeah.
guys know we're saying it shouldn't be. You know, you try and close. I was down in, I made a BBC programme down in on the south coast where there had a couple of maternity units that were doing about 2,000 births each. You know, well under the Royal College's recommendation. They wanted to put a one in to do 5,000, and it was just hopeless. You know, the MPs who thought they wouldn't get elected if they agreed privately said, well, yes, we think it probably is a good idea, but I can't say that in public, I've got to get re-elected. All the local councillors were against it, they were cranking people up. Do you think the time, like in local government now, where they've speeded up the whole process of consultation to try and help the building industry and so on, I'm wondering if it isn't time really for you to be pressing for a new consultation model where certainly we listen to people, but you can't spin it out in the way that you can now. It's so fruitless.
I think you've got to engage, and you may be right. I can't say. What I do know is 2030 is only 14 years away.
Yeah.
You know, 2020, we're done. You know, whatever's in the pipe now, quite frankly, is within 2020. When I went back to NHSE after a month at NHSI, I said, what's the next 5-year forward view look like, and what's the next one after that? Because we need a 15-year view of how this is designed. And once you look at that design, and once you look at the bow wave of demand and the need for integration, you then have to have the conversation with our public, who have a right to understand, a right to know, and a right to engage what we need to do. Now, you know, that's my view.
What about a different model? What about citizens' juries that decide?
Why would you do that?
Because it engages the public, you give them all the information so they can make an informed decision, whereas most of the public now don't really understand why these changes are being made. They think it's all about money and cuts, and we all come to work to do that kind of a job. NICE used to use them. They seem to have stopped recently. But do Canada have citizens' juries? Do you have citizens' juries in Canada?
Yeah,
No?
Citizens for Ontario.
Yeah. And I think also in New Zealand they're using them there as well. And what happens is you get a salami slice of the public, you take them away, you give them really proper information, you get them, professionals give evidence, and they sit like a jury, and they, at the end of it, they decide what they want to do. And so, that I just feel that the STP stuff is so radical, which is, you down in your neck of the woods, you ain't seen nothing yet. It's very radical, and of course you're going to get people who are going to spin the consultation process out. You're not going to change anything. So so you've got a job in your hands.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the money for a moment. All the controls totals have been agreed. The controls total is the amount. Have you done all the controls totals? Yeah. All the controls totals have been agreed, sort of. Why are you laughing?
I'm waiting for you to ask a question.
Well, I just sort of put it in the form of a discursive. The control totals have been agreed. Well, yeah. Are they going to deliver? Because if they don't get any development money, do they?
Yeah, and that's our clear expectation. I spoke at the provider conference last week. I said first quarter had gone well and to plan, but we're worried about the shape of the plans. We hope nobody is misleading any of us about what needs to be done. We're going to do a proper half-year reforecast. We're going to make sure that this works. It's tough. It's really tough to do what we need to do. But
have you factored in a bad winter?
We hope we have factored in the things we need to factor in. Right? We didn't. you can't factor in all the things you don't know about. And it's going to be really tough. Jim said it was going to be really tough, really tight. Doesn't mean to say that we relax from the ambition of meeting those.
Is it true Jim's cancelled Christmas? Is that right?
I wouldn't imagine so.
The tooth fairy has been made redundant.
So it is going to be tough.
What will happen if somebody doesn't hit their controls total and they can say, well, look, you know, we gave it our best shot, we thought we were right, we've overshot. Were you really not going to give them any development money?
There are rules that are, quite frankly, prescribed on us and on our behalf.
So have you factored in a failure rate, have you?
We have got a sight of the range that we will be
Right,
in,
so
but we
what
don't
percentage
have,
do you think will fail?
We don't have contingencies.
So have you got enough money for everybody to deliver so that they all get some of the sustainability development?
In the aggregate, we all have to deliver our control totals.
Right.
Now,
In the aggregate,
we all have to deliver
Right.
our control totals. So
well, no, that's better in the aggregate, isn't it?
and you know, hopefully there are some pluses and minuses.
Yes.
But if there are more minuses than pluses, we have not got. Banks of
Some
money
people
hidden
won't get any
somewhere
right.
else.
Well, I mean, you could carry that argument forward, as indeed I've tried to do. If you look at local health economies in the round, can you deliver a health economy in the aggregate rather than the individual bits of it? And the CCG overspend, the hospitals overspend. Is there a case for looking at health economies in the aggregate?
Well, that's what we want to do, and I think the planning guidance that's gone out is trying to support that control total in a.
Then who's the accountable officer under those circumstances?
It's a really good question.
Whoever wants to be.
Because it comes back to, you know, we have our fragmented, disaggregated structures which are not doing what we need to be done and probably never would have done. So we need to put them together, but we can't change the formal governance structures. So you basically have to get people accepting, either under an MOU with clear decision rights within the legal structures that they've got, that this is the way we're going to operate. And it requires, quite frankly, a bit of tolerance and flexibility around this is my castle, but I'm joining my castle up to somebody else's castle in the public interest, in the interest of better outcomes for patients, as opposed to, you know, what do I say, 500 citadels each with their own king, queen, court of jesters and drawbridge moat.
Well, never was that more true than in CCG then. I mean, we got, what is it, 212 CCGs. Do you see that number coming down?
I suspect over time it will.
Because, I mean, we've been threatening it for ages now, haven't we? We've been saying that the number should come down. We're 900 days away from the end of the 5-year forward view. Jim will go back to running a hospital and Simon will go back to his £500,000 a year job in America.
But CCGs are joining up. You know, there is some consolidation of CCGs. It's only 2 years since they were essentially formed.
Yeah.
2 years. And,
Yeah, I suppose
you know, we've just got to do it. We've got to join this system back up, and I cannot say it enough times. There are many ways to join it up. We are not going to join it up by primary legislation, rearranging the deck chairs on the
Titanic. Captain Smith. Actually, that was a gift, wasn't it?
We are going to join it up by having the right common mindset about locking arms and getting this job done.
Yeah. Although, actually, you know, as a student of change management, this is a kind of a disruptive approach to change, isn't it? Where you give the template to someone and say, okay, you sort it out, and effectively, the organisations that are emerging, I mean, STPs have no legal status at all, and have no budgets at all, and no accountable officer, but they've emerged out of the need, the overwhelming need of a strategic hand. No one is making the GPs federate, but everybody's kind of getting it. So this might be a change model that we'll look back in years to come and say, do you know what, that worked? It was one of the few changes that worked.
So being chair of something that's quite a lonely place, there's a lady called Gillian Stapp who I've spent quite a bit of time with privately on advice, and she talks about clumsy solutions.
Yeah.
And clumsy solutions are those where you don't spend all your time analysing and determining anything. You put people in the room, you get people talking, debating, different points of view, and you get to the right answer over time. STPs are don't want to say they're clumsy, but they are. And
No, it's a clumsy
they're
solution.
clumsy
And they'll be
solution.
messy in the middle.
You know, I go back to two people. I did a very small program somewhere, and I saw Porter and I saw Chris Bartlett. Porter was all that straight line strategy over there. Chris Bartlett was purpose, people, process. And that's what I believe. What is our purpose? How do we engage the people to take us on that journey? And how do you establish the processes that drive you there? And so, you know, you can intellectualize this, you can make an academic treatise, or you can go, yeah, it's actually about what are we trying to do, who are the people going to do it, and what are the processes we need to get it done with. And STPs are just part of that mechanism. And they're slightly clumsy, they're slightly not perfectly designed, but if we'd gone through a process of perfectly designing them, we wouldn't actually have launched the process.
Yeah, I think
So,
that's right.
you know,
I was talking to John
give
Lister,
some
do you know
credit
like
for-
John Lister in London Health Emergency? He was having a go at STPs, and I said to him then, you know, it's too early, wait, let's see what happens. Let's see how they emerge. But of course it does upset the locals if they think the hospital's going to close or things are going to change. So it comes back to good old communications. Let's, I'll just keep an eye on the time. Let's talk a bit about boards. Right. I used to be the chairman of a board, and I suppose I'm as guilty as anyone else, but I must say I do meet a lot of boards who, they don't seem to, I'm talking about the non-executives here, you know, and bless the non-executives, you know, and I'm not being rude about them, because they give their time and do what they can do. But a lot of them are not very good. Now that isn't to say that they can't be very good, but we do need to spend more time and effort on them to help them be very good. I mean, you get some who just can't read a balance sheet.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time with chairs of boards, and I'm blessed with a Chairs Advisory Partnership, which I jointly chair with Peter Wyman. It's a way of engaging 30 chairs, and I go to meetings of regional chairs and stuff. And you know what? The vast majority of them are very, very focused. What I have found is often, slightly odd, the relationship between the CEO of a trust and the chair is not always as close as perhaps I would have been used to in my world. I think sometimes...
You have a very close relationship with Jim, don't you?
Yeah, I mean I do. We talk.
How do you keep that accountability distance?
Because I do it through all the formal processes. So, you know, I'm very process orientated around what's the business plan, what are the objectives, what are the team objectives, how are we monitoring it, and holding people to account. So, you know, we have our collegiate moments, and we also have our behind the door moment where we go, this isn't going right, or that wasn't handled terribly well. That's the job of a fairly experienced chair to know when to turn this one or that one, to keep somebody really highly motivated and learning at the same time. I don't think boards have yet embraced in the NHS the sort of coaching culture, mentoring culture, bringing people on in the same way that in other systems it happens. I think you know, one of the reasons I've gone around some of the third sector organisations, some of the FTSE 100 companies, is to get an injection of new and different types of skill, particularly around digital, around process, around lean, and around change that we just inject into the boards will create a slightly different dynamic. But let's not say they're not very good, because actually I don't think that's true. I think a lot of them are doing really hard graft work in pretty dire circumstances. And if you're running a mental health trust as a net and operating across, or a community trust across multiple estates, that's a tough old job as a net. If you're a non-foundation trust net, you're being paid £9,000 a year for doing it, or is it 8? You know, I mean, if you're doing
I think it's time it's time to get to it.
It's 6.
It's
Yeah.
6.
Yeah.
£6,000. Really?
And you know, this
That's
is
what Eve Richardson would pay for a pair of shoes.
and this is for most a day a week.
Yeah.
It's a day a week, and for the chair, it's.
But it's not, is it? I mean, if you're really into it, it's much more than that. All right, look, let's, Terry, we got anything on Twitter we want to raise?
No, and unfortunately, Captain Titanic has worked his fantastic powers on the periscope, which has sunk
Right.
beautifully on multiple occasions. So I'm not sure.
So we're recording anyway. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. All right,
Really
over
good
to you, really. What would you like to ask or comment on? Or, would Deloitte like to ask something about PwC?
Right.
Yes, please, Patrick. Yes.
So-
can I just explain? Patrick's one of our sponsors.
Yes,
Could you be
yes,
very
he's-
nice?
he's
to-
that guy.
yeah. Could you be very nice and give him a lovely answer?
They're doing some work for me in Birmingham, so we can all debate the answer.
Well, you've got to declare an interest now. You're bugging it up.
So you know, I'm an advocate of collapsing the commissioner-provider split, if you like. So a lot of what you talk about is music to my ears in terms of the closer collaboration between the commissioning and provider side. But there's a sort of, the only thing that troubles me is a sort of moral maze question in here as well. It feels like the system is trying to circumnavigate the Health and Social Care Act of 2012. And, you know, is that appropriate for public bodies to be actively trying to circumnavigate the law?
We're really, 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 really clear that we are not going to do anything. But let's be very, very clear about this. The law is the law, and we will comply with it. There are many, many ways of creating a greater integration of services whilst maintaining the discipline of a purchase provider and parent. I just think that you know, it's not black and white. I actually think it's working quite well, the way in which people are coming together behaviourally. And instead of having contracting conversations, we're having service conversations. And that's quite different. Many of the conversations we've had over the last couple of years have been about contracts. They haven't been about service commissioning. And that's what we need to get to. And the best way of doing that is through higher levels of collaboration.
Can I just have a follow on with that, if I may? And then, so as the STPs progress,
Yeah.
I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of, if you like, a stress testing of them before whatever their planning goes live.
Yeah.
Because you think back to a mid-staff sort of scenario, and where does accountability rest in these new systems and new models?
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to be finding that out afterwards. You know, that it's unclear as to where accountability sits.
I think there have been too many cases of transactions and things being done without people thinking about the post-transaction implications. And we can talk about hospital mergers across the country where, you know, in the same way with the private sector, the joy of looking at and doing the transaction is then significantly overcome by the lack of implementation afterwards, and we can go through that. I think there are 5 tests for STPs. One is, what is the governance, and how does the governance and STP work in the context of the governance of the legal structures that form part of it? What is the ambition of those STPs? Is it both doable but actually stretching, or is it just a reconfiguration of the status quo? 3, is there very, very clear programme and project management of what needs to be done from day one once you do these things, and has somebody mapped out those things? 4, have we really got the envelope of resources to do what needs to be done in the time frame, and where are those resources coming from? And if there are very large capital asks, quite frankly, we've got, as everybody knows, a bit of capital starvation at the moment, and we need to, coming back to whether we create a bond or whether we create some other mechanisms, we have to find some transformation capital in the system. Forget the tightness of the revenue, the transformation capital. No system transforms itself devoid of the ability to have some capital. And 5thly, are we essentially trying to do this with the biggest win for the lowest injection of resource? So are we calibrating what can be done short term without having to wait for people to negotiate money? So those 5 tests I would personally apply against all of the CTs at the STPs, and having done so, then prioritise which ones are ready to go and which ones need more work.
Yeah,
Fine, that's very good. That was worth the price of a ticket. I'll come to you in 1 second. I'm just going to take a Twitter question. I'll come to you.
Yeah, on Twitter, a big thing that's been picked up and is being talked about is people are really liking your we need a 10 or 15-year vision, not a 5-year forward view. And there's some questions around how do we make health planning not attached to political 5-year cycles. Do you have a view on that? Because people are really liking your 15-year plan.
Well, Andrew Lansley tried to do that, didn't he? He tried to put the Department of Health in the role of the Bank of England.
Yeah, well, you will never, with the healthcare system in this country as being as pivotal as it is to everybody's lives, you will never, ever distance it as far as that from the interests and the legitimate interests of government. I think there are some things that can be done, but that's based on, have we got the right structures? Are we delivering what we've said we would do? Have we negotiated from a position of real evidence? And are we driving things like, the number of things we haven't achieved with the digital agenda, with the reconfiguration of the system? We have to step up and do those things to earn our trust to get on and can do it. So I think, but look, we live in a cycle of 5-year fixed-term parliament. I could apply the same test to transport infrastructure, energy infrastructure, and anything. I do think it's really important to have the big public debate about the 15 to 20 years. Without it, I think we'll always go, we'll do that next time. And we are at 1 minute to midnight on this health and care system in this country. I don't want to be dramatic, but we are at 1 minute to midnight in terms of our ability to reconfigure the health and care system for my old age, for other people's old age, and for our children for 2030. And we talk about it, we really talk about it, but we've got to get on and do it.
I think I absolutely agree. I don't think people really do understand how serious it is. Because it's quite interesting, because most of us in this room have worked in the health service. There's always been a crisis. I can't remember when the NHS didn't have a crisis. Come give me 1 sec. I can't remember when the NHS didn't have a crisis, and then suddenly, we've got a crisis. You think, oh well, it's just been another crisis. Well, no, it's very important. Right, let's hear more from the audience. Just so far away, and I'll come to you.
Roy, it's for you and then Ed, because I want to give you a moment to think about it. Would you give the CQC budget to NHSI given its improvement?
I would. I mean, my views on the CQC are well known. I think the narrative, a sensible narrative goes like this. We've been inspecting hospitals now for 12, 14 years, and 70% of them still have some kind of quality issue. And okay, it clearly doesn't work. But this is the but, and I'm going to be kind to them. I think. Look, when we started inspection, all we had was a bloke with a flat clap and a clipboard. That was all we could do, turn up and have a look. And then it takes months to write a report, and we found out what an inspector found out 6 months ago. It's a complete waste of time. Deming was right. Inspection's got nothing to do with quality. However, these days, we have much more we could do. We've got real-time data, dashboards, and we can answer the question, how do we do today? We can answer that question. 5 key parameters, and then once if you get a trend going on and it looks like somebody's on the ski slope, then you can ring them up and say, what can we do to help you? So the inspection regime is costing us 250 million a year, plus whatever the trust is spending in preparation. Call it, I don't know, $500 million, maybe more. And so I would strip that money out, and I'd make it part of the performance management of NHS Improvement, because we're trying to improve, not inspect. And I would make it a data-driven process, because we can do that now, and we couldn't do it then. And what we're doing really is we're listening to the long wave radio when we've got DAB, and that's how I feel.
So you would make it part of their budget?
Absolutely, I'd shift it across.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't. I might take a different tack, which is what they've done. Over there. The question to me is, how do we redesign the monitoring and the real time and the way in which we check out quality for the future, and how do we use it as a front end to an improvement agenda. What's happened in the past is you've had CQC over there doing its inspections and quite frankly, relatively little learning coming into the front end of any improvement regime because there wasn't any improvement function really in the organisation. So I would like it separate. It may well be smaller, it may well be more real-time, more dashboard orientated. But the key to me is, in the same way with litigation authority and other mechanisms where we find fault and find challenge, are we picking up the learnings and bringing them into our organisation and across our system to learn from them? It comes back to what I said right at the start. Have we got a true learning system in the NHS? Or have we got deny that we've never had any problems? And I can tell you, as we all know, the health system in this country is not perfect and does not deliver everything correctly first time.
Okay, I'm going to move us on because I'm conscious of time. Yes, sir, fine.
Hello, Malcolm Green. You mentioned purpose, people and process. Now, I've been involved in the health service more than 40 years, and I get a feeling that a million people who work in the health service are more discouraged and disaffected at the moment than, we've had, as Roy said, crises, we've had financial difficulties, we've had reorganisations over 40 years. The wheel has turned several times. I just get a feeling that people are more disaffected and more disillusioned now, the people working in the service, than I've ever known. Now, I could be wrong, but
yeah,
what do you think?
How's your morale?
Well,
How's their morale?
I just wish that we would celebrate what we do more each and every day, because when you go to a hospital, when you go to A&E, when you go to a paediatric unit, when you go to an end-of-life unit, everybody is absolutely dedicated to the task of serving the public. We do not celebrate the work that is done.
They need a bit of love.
And
they
well,
don't get it.
I've said it many times. What is the job of a leader in an organisation? Is to oxygenate that organisation, make the people feel like they want to come to work.
Have you mentioned that to Jeremy Hunt?
Jeremy's grown up enough to understand all of that stuff on his own account. He doesn't need me to tell. Quite frankly, that's off the agenda. But I am passionate about oxygenating organisations based on allowing people to breathe their job. That's why improvement has to start at that level. It's why commentators shouldn't be talking about the negatives day in, day out. The negatives are outweighed by the positive life stories multitude of times in the NHS, but they don't get out.
The Academy of Fabulous Stuff has had 750,000 page views in just over a year. There's an enormous appetite for the good stuff.
I love it. I love it.
Terry and I get around the hospitals. It's fun. When we get around the hospital, it's rare that we come away thinking the morale was no good. It is. But it is an interesting question, because I spent this morning wasting half of my life in a discourse with some of these junior doctors who all hate me because I said they shouldn't go on strike. And it's easy to come away thinking they all think like a small vocal group think. I think the people who work in the NHS come with such a strong sense of vocation that okay, it's not great around them, but they do their job willingly and well. And I think we're going to find out actually, because Shane's company we're working on a secret project.
Not anymore.
which I can't tell you about. But we are going to be able to measure the morale of the NHS every day. We have a new app that's coming out in November, and it's cost Shane a fortune, and thank you very much.
We'll keep it quiet for another month away.
Yeah, I won't tell you about it, but the way it works is that everybody working in the NHS can have a copy of this app. It pings once a day and says, how are you feeling today? And we can measure their morale, red, amber and green, and it goes to a website, where there's a big advert for his company, and we got a fabometer. We got a meter that measures the NHS morale. Now the trick is that we'll know where people work, and so we'll be able to go back to the chief executives of the hospitals and benchmark the morale. So we can say to this hospital, your morale is terrific, well done, how do you do it? And your hospital, your morale is down the pan, can we come and help you? So there's a bit of science behind
but
it.
It's
so,
secret at the moment.
But it's a secret.
I think we need a Men in Black moment.
So
I don't want to finish off on you know, if we go, thank you. You know, the service is under enormous pressure. I think people are frustrated in the delivery of service. Their heads are down, but you can tip them back up by that sort of engagement and that celebration of what they do. And it's my job then to support the fixing of the system that enables them to oxygenate their.
I like the phrase oxygenate.
We just have brilliant people, right? And you know, why beat
the shit out of them?
Why, you said it,
Yeah.
Why do that when we know that deep in their blood is patient care?
The role of a leader is to create the time and space for good people to do great things. And that's very easy, isn't it, Mike?
You say so, Roy, yes. You're avoiding your pumpkin moment will undoubtedly mean making sure outcomes are good, making sure you've got financial control. Although Roy says we can, in fact we don't have the information systems in place at the moment to be able to do that. And most boards don't have a clear understanding about how it can be done. How do you think NHS Improvement can accelerate this programme in depth?
Well, we've got to bring in the expertise. It's partly why I went round some of the just the NED level, around the footsies and things, because the digitisation of other systems is way ahead of the digitisation of the health and care system. But we've then got to, I think, for a time, bring in players who can actually do this with trust. I think Keith McNeil's appointment, I think the new approach with Noel Gordon taking on board, done this before in his professional life, will help. I don't think it's going to be easy, because actually I think it requires a system to be joined up and people to do it once, not, you know, primary care to do this, secondary care to do this, social care to do something else. So
Patrick, how do you do your reporting in your company? You've got a huge organisation. Is it all electronic?
Mostly.
Yeah.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, still,
I don't think it's difficult to convert a balance sheet into something that we can all have a look at.
I think what
Yes,
we're going to have to do for I think what we're going to have to do for a time is shove some aggregator systems on top of the big infrastructure systems, and that's been done time and time again, just to drag the data out.
We need some good open source systems.
Ultimately.
Yes, ma'am.
Completely from the lower end of life.
No, you mustn't say that, because this lady is a representative of a patients' organisation.
Well, an independent public and patient involvement organisation in Devon, but we are also members of one that is more national. My question is, what is the point of public and patient involvement and all the consultations? There is a lack of trust, there is lack of information. We do not know on the grassroots level what the STP is, we do not know what innovation is, what is meant by it, we do not know what is a new model of care, as in terms of how long is a bit of string. We have heard all these things so many times before, and it's actually becoming cynical that those people like myself who are offering ourselves to be participating, as NHS in the Constitution says, in public involvement, but it's just not working.
It's a very good question. Yeah, and it goes to the heart of the speed with which the STPs can work. I mean, I think it's Ellie, isn't it? I do think, Ellie, that. Well, let me ask you: do you think that sometimes the patient involvement is used to manipulate no change?
Yes. Well, it is used to let the wider public believe that there was consultation, and in other words, we're becoming implicitly accused of having agreed to what is being
But it
presented.
isn't necessarily the case, is it, that everything the NHS wants to do is opposed?
No, but because
often
people
is.
do not understand what it means,
Yes.
how can you consult somebody on something that you do not understand?
Yes. Yes, I do absolutely understand that.
Yeah, and I think, I think I said it at the provider conference last week, we've made some mistakes. Some of those mistakes have been, at what time do you do them? What is the narrative? What is the conversation that needs to take place? Too often, I think, across society, actually, we don't do that engagement properly. On the other hand, 2030, we do have to drive and create a different ecosystem for health and care. So we have to have the dialogue, the acceptance
But you do
have
and
not
recognition.
have a dialogue.
We have
It's
to.
a one-sided dialogue.
So
Yeah, I
I've
get
said
that.
we made some mistakes and we have to improve the dialogue. Ultimately, we will have to do some things which are unpopular.
And just tell us.
Yes.
Just say, this is what's happening. Don't pretend consultations.
Who do we, you see, it is a very interesting, Eve Richardson is here, Eve and I closed a hospital. And I had my parenthood challenged by someone who wrote it on my car. I mean, the public can be very aggressive. Where we thought we were doing the right thing, we thought we'd gone through the hoops and hurdles. We didn't come to work to close something down because we wanted to make it worse for people. We had a genuinely held belief we'd make it better. But it is very hard to engage with a public that doesn't really want to listen. I can tell you what happens. Well, you know what happens. You've seen it yourself. You get the local councillors involved. You get the sort of the no to everything involved, and you get. But it's very easy to make a lot of noise, particularly on social media, without really understanding what the issues are. So there is a responsibility, perhaps on both sides, for patients to be to inform themselves better. I mean, if you look at STPs, for example, there's an excellent STP website. I mean, it's all there explaining what they are and what they're trying to do, and there's been some unfortunate leaks of early documents, which doesn't help. But it is, which is why I mentioned the idea of the citizens' juries earlier, where we can try and drive more information into the communities to get a better understanding. You may not agree with the decision, but at the end of the day, I mean, look at what happened in Lewisham in South London. They went to court, a judicial review effectively on a technicality, and it cost a bloody fortune. And that can't be good. Eve, were you going to say something?
You have to take the people and the public with you at a very early stage.
Yes.
And I think we've missed a bit of a trick in that, I'm afraid. I think and it doesn't matter whether they're local politicians, local parish councils, local groups, they need to be engaged, and we don't talk plain English to them.
No.
I look at the STPs and the language we use just gets more extreme.
They are
and
the
I just try
technocrats.
and say to people, if that's your mum or your child, how do you interpret this? And we have to do that, and I'm sorry, we're not doing that anymore.
You're right. I'm going to move on, Eva, because I have to finish at 5:30, because I can't use my bus pass after 8 o'clock. Do you really finish this off with a beautiful question? From Judith, yes.
It's Judith Smith from the University of Birmingham.
Formerly enough.
And it's formerly often still a senior associate of the Nuffield Trust, I should say. We talked a lot tonight about providers, really, understandably. But I just wondered, Ed, what thoughts you got about the state of commissioning in the NHS, because we lay a lot of store by that in our system. So just thoughts about that or prospects.
Well, it's knackered, isn't it?
I think the challenge with commissioning is, was it set up to do far too much? And was it actually set up so separate from the rest of the ecosystem that it was actually impossible to translate some of the ideas around new models, some of the ideas around local health economies, probably too micro health economies, if I'm honest, which is part of this sort of aggregation thing, into reality. And I think that, I was there. I was there at the time they were created. They were, as Jim would say, a mixed ability set of organisations. Some of them have done some good things. I think we probably have got too many. I think they were too detached from the rest of the system. But let's not just critique everything that we've always ever done. Let's move past it and accepting the dialogue with our public and therefore the people that pay for the NHS has not been right around STPs. Let's make the clumsy solution a better solution by starting from where we are and moving forward than putting them in the bin and starting something else.
Wise words from the chairman. We're going to have to stop. I've only got 30 seconds to sum up. There's people on. We're not live now. That's still gone. Well, we might be live. Okay. Well, if you are watching on Periscope, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Come and join us next time. If you join the IHM, you get a ticket at half price. And
if you don't, it's free.
Last word with the chairman. Thank you so much for our friends from Canada. Have you enjoyed yourselves? Yeah. It's nice to know that our healthcare system is in a similar mess to yours. No, nothing works. And thank you all very much for coming. We do have a little gift for you, Ed. We always thank our guests with a bottle of, people ask me how I get my inspiration. A bottle of our favourite whiskey. It's Welsh whiskey. It's Penderyn. Regulars will know the Penderyn story. And the great thing, so it's our way of saying thank you. It's the finest whiskey in the world. I'm sorry to any Scots here, but it's Welsh whiskey and it's wonderful. And the interesting thing is that Malcolm Grant says you have to declare everything over 50 quid. That's cost £53. So you're going to ring up Malcolm and say you've got a bottle of Royal Lilley's whiskey, which will make my day.
I'll give you £4 back.
You won't have to tell me. What a great guest. Thank you very much.